Hey everyone, I'm here with a 2023 Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus, and today I want to talk about my initial thoughts on this vehicle, kind of an unbiased opinion on what I think of the Tesla Model 3, and some of these findings can be applied to the Tesla Model Y. But I think, overall I've been relatively impressed with this vehicle from a technology standpoint. Some of my pain points with the vehicle involve the comfort aspect. I would normally consider, this car that's priced at like $44,000 or $45,000 for a Standard Range Plus to be more of a luxury car, entry-level luxury car. And in a lot of ways, from a technology standpoint, this car is considered luxury. But from like a comfort standpoint, just from a noise standpoint, ride standpoint, it's not really up to a luxury car feel, in my opinion. There's things like the doors that sound very solid and very very substantial, like a luxury car should feel. It's got the features of a luxury car. It's got technology like a luxury car. But when it comes to like the noise and the ride, there is still some improvement to be had on it. I would say that this suspension definitely feels like a sports suspension. I think it should be optional on all the models except for the performance. This feels like the performance model suspension if I was going to think of like a sports car that's really fast, really sporty. But I think that if this had more of a comfort suspension on the base models and even the long range model, and only the performance one had more of a sport oriented suspension like this car has, that'd be more fitting for like the luxury car buyer and what they're looking for. Some of that might be attributed to the fact that these tires call for 42 pounds of pressure, PSI. But this car actually has like 45 pounds of pressure in the tires as they're equipped here on this car. So that could be part of the reason why the ride's kind of suffering in that regard. This also has 19-inch rims versus the standard 18, so that might contribute a little bit to it, but it seems like even if you go down to 38 PSI pressure, 18-inch rims, this car is still too firm for what like a lot of the buyers who are spending $45,000 are gonna buy this car for. If you're looking for like a sports suspension or like you really like a hard ride, this car might be for you, and you like feeling really connected to the road. So that's kind of like what you might be looking for. Otherwise, comfort-wise, I think for 2024, the Highland Tesla Model 3 that's coming to the States here in just a few months will have a much softer suspension that'll be more befitting of a car that's 45 to 50 grand. If you have the performance model, I understand, like I said, the ride, but if you're on the highway for a long period of time, this car can be a little tiresome. The seats are extremely comfortable. I will say the seats are great. I wouldn't say the seat fit and finish is the best because it doesn't feel like real leather. I think it's a synthetic leather material, and it's a little glossy, shiny looking, so it doesn't look super premium like a matte finish to the seats would look. From like an ingenuity standpoint, this car is fantastic. It's got pretty good cargo space. It's got pretty good, front trunk space. Like I said, the doors are really solid. It's got a lot of tech like adaptive cruise control and blind spot monitoring. If you change lanes, the latest update allows for a chime to happen if you were to change lanes and someone's in your blind spot, so that's appreciated. So let's step inside the car here. I think it's unlocked. As a rental car, I usually have to tap a key straight to the camera that's mounted on the side here. And actually I just locked it on accident, but if I hold that there, it should unlock the car. Yep, so now it's unlocked. And again, you don't have to worry about all this stuff if you have the app on your phone. Hold the button here to unlock all the doors. So now all the doors should be unlocked. So opening up the back seat here, I'll climb in. I'll show you guys what it kind of looks like. It's got a flat floor, so that's really cool. But I think the seat is a little low to the ground. When I get in here and I'm 6 feet tall, just under 6 feet tall, my thighs are pretty high up in the air. I think if you're under 5.5 feet tall, this might be better for you. But at 6 feet, I'm only an inch away from this hard glass roof. So I would give overall the back seat probably like, I don't know, maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10. Wouldn't give it the best rating sitting in the back seat at all. Front seat is definitely more comfortable and more suited for this car. This car kind of feels like the back seat was a little bit of an afterthought, and like from a passenger comfort standpoint, this car is not exactly where it's at. The Model Y is a little better because it's a little bit taller. a little bit more room in the back seat on that car. Model 3 is a little small even for the sports sedan class. Opening up the trunk, it's a power trunk even on the Standard Range Plus model. And it's got a really good amount of room, actually. It's pretty deep, it's got a good opening. But I really wish that these struts were a little longer and this hinge was a little bit longer to open up this more like vertical, because whenever you're bending in to get something out of the trunk, you end up whacking your head on this thing because it's only like 4 feet off the ground. So if you're 6 feet tall, even 5 feet tall, you're gonna whack your head on that at some point. The Model Y doesn't have that problem. The Model 3 definitely does though. So that's something that I wish could be improved. And sedans typically don't have this issue because, as most cars, you'll notice that this goes straight up and down on most sedans. So some of the pluses of this car, it's extremely fast. It's under 6 seconds 0 to 60 for the Standard Range Plus. I tested it under 50% state of charge and it was still giving me under 6 seconds 0 to 60 without the 1 foot rollout. So that's really impressive that this car is that fast, even on the base models. And then if you get a long range all-wheel drive model, you're going to get 4.2 to 4.4 seconds 0 to 60, and with the $2,000 upgrade you can get under 4 seconds at 3.9 0 to 60. So very quick. The steering is fantastic. I will say the steering on this car is probably right there with the Alfa Romeo Giulia in terms of steering feel. It's a little bit heavier than the Alfa Romeo Giulia, but the steering response is almost the same. So it's an absolute hoot to go through the canyons in this thing. I took it in some canyon roads and it was extremely fast, extremely poised, extremely competent when it came time to go through like all of the corners in those canyons. So I was really impressed with that overall, on how this car is definitely the sports sedan through the corners. So I was really impressed with that. Like I said, firm steering feel, heavy steering feel, even in the standard steering weight mode. Sport mode for the steering is extremely heavy in my opinion, and the steering response is extremely quick, so that's really cool. Puts the power down really well. It doesn't have almost any wheel spin, even if you floor it from a stop. Passing power is unbelievable from an instant torque perspective. And I would say the technology overall, like the adaptive cruise control, the blind spot, the park sensors, all that stuff from a technology standpoint, and autopilot, it works extremely well. And this is where I think the bread and butter of Tesla is, and the supercharger network is second to none. It preconditions the battery. I was able to add about 40% charge in 17 minutes, and that was at about 100 kilowatt hours for the speed that I was running at. And I preconditioned the battery for 15 minutes prior to getting there to the supercharger, and the temperature outside was 55 degrees, and that was going from 46% to 86%. So it took 17 minutes for that. Another charging rate that I did was lower at like 81 kilowatt hours, and that took about 20 minutes to do 40%, and that was more like from 45% up to 85%. So overall it charges fairly quick. If you think of like a car like this is like your phone, this charges very fast for how big the battery is. This one has a 57.5 kilowatt hour battery in the Standard Range Plus version. If you go up to the long range, that's going to get an 82 kilowatt hour battery pack, and that applies to the Model Y as well. I would recommend getting a long range, but I wouldn't necessarily go for the full self-driving package on these. The standard autopilot works so well as it is, and I think where this car really shines is being an electric car. Where it doesn't shine is being a luxury car in my eyes, and I think that Tesla's are really going to address that with the 2024 models once they're released, and the upcoming refresh of the Tesla Model Y. So that's kind of my opinion about the Tesla Model 3 and kind of what I'm thinking about it so far. So overall I'm pretty happy with it, but I would definitely rent one again. It's very low cost to operate it. I mean, I can go, you know, for less than $9, I can go 108 miles is what I calculated. So that is the equivalent of, I mean, what, 2 gallons of gas, 2.5 gallons of gas or so in California. So that'd be getting like 50 miles per gallon. So it's pretty impressive, and overall how cheap it is to run. But I would definitely get different tires if you were having this car for a long run. That way that you could get a little bit quieter of a ride as well. And then for the door closing sound, let's take a listen to that. Yeah, it's very solid. It actually sounds just like my 2020 Audi A4. And on the back doors, it sounds very similar to that. Yeah, very solid overall. So I'm really impressed with it. I'll kind of wrap it up here and say, you know, I'm very happy with the direction that Tesla's going. And just for you, as you FYI guys, this is a double pane front window glass, in case you're wondering. So it is quieter than the single pane glass cars, but it's not as quiet as the new 2024s are going to be. So, and I really enjoy the charging pad here. It works really well, charges relatively fast, and the phone never slips on there, even with the acceleration and handling of this car. But overall, my impression is this car is a great, let's call it premium electric car, but I would not necessarily say it's a luxury electric car. Once the ride and the sound, road noise and wind noise is reduced, I would say this would be more on par with a luxury car, and would be able to justify the $45,000 to $65,000 price that this car commands. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video today. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the section below. Otherwise, thanks for watching and have a good one.